Hi. We are continuing our series this morning on Romans 12, which we've been looking at for a couple of months probably. And we're moving on to the second half of the passage. So I'm going to read that from Romans. Share with the Lord's people who are in need. Practice hospitality. Bless those who persecute you. Bless and do not curse. Rejoice with those who rejoice. Mourn with those who mourn. Live in harmony with one another. Do not be proud, but be willing to associate with people of low position. Do not be conceited. Do not repay anyone evil for evil. Be careful to do what is right in the eyes of everyone. If it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Do not take revenge, my dear friends, but leave room for God's wrath. For it is written, "It is mine to avenge, I will repay," says the Lord. On the contrary, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him something to drink. In doing this, you will heap burning coals on his head. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. So that's the passage that we're moving into for the next few weeks. And this morning we're looking at the first part of that, which is share with the Lord's people who are in need. Practice hospitality. I wonder what you think about when you think of the word hospitality. It makes me think a little bit about my mother-in-law, who the first time she had my parents round to her house for some food, it was a supper on Christmas Day, and we went round and we went into the kitchen to get the food, and the best china was out. Like, I think it was your granny's china. It was like the best china. You know what? It's like flowery and it's got gold around the edges. And I was like, ooh. And she just said, "Ruth, don't let me down." Like, I had to pretend that we did this all the time. Like, we weren't just doing it because my mum and dad were there. We had this breast china out all the time. It wasn't a special occasion. Which kind of contrasts quite a lot with our house, where Norman turned up for Coast Group a couple of weeks ago at 10 to 8. I mean, who comes at 10 to 8 when it starts at 8? He's never going to do that again. To find Richard about to hoover and me about to bleach the toilet. So he knows if he comes early again, he'll be the one doing the hoovering. That's the contrasting standard between my mother-in-law and me. Hospitality. Some people probably hear that word with relish and think, "Oh yes." Some people probably hear it with dread. But whether we love it or hate it, actually those things are not hospitality. Those things are entertainment. And Jesus doesn't ask us to practice entertainment. Phew. This is actually great timing because Heather and Francis are coming for lunch. So this talk is going to set a really low bar for what they can expect when they arrive after church. Entertainment focuses on the host. It's making the host look good, isn't it? Having a beautiful home and incredible food that you cooked yourself, or you took out of the packet and put it in your own dish so it made it look like you cooked it yourself. It focuses on the host. But hospitality focuses on the guest's needs. So what is it? I want to read a quote that I read a quote that I read a few years ago by a guy called Pete Gregg, who is the founder of 24/7 Prayer. And when you read something and it just impacts you so much and then you never forget about it. And so as soon as I knew I was speaking on hospitality, I wanted to share this with you because I think it's so powerful. It's going to come up on the screen. People tell me that they have the gift of hospitality, by which I think they mean they like dinner parties and aspire to have beautiful homes and enjoy entertaining exotic, interesting, appreciative guests. This is not the gift of hospitality. This is the gift of a box of chocolates. Biblical hospitality starts in the heart and not the IKEA catalogue. It allows for interruption. It goes the second mile. And it welcomes inconvenience. This is where I fail all the time. Me too. The Greek word for hospitality, philoxenia, literally means friendship to strangers. It's about kindness to people who are strange, to those we don't know, not to friends. This is where we get the words like hospital and hostel. It's about care for those who are hurting and welcoming those who are unwelcome elsewhere. I think this is what Jesus is getting at in Luke 14. When you give a luncheon or a dinner, do not invite your friends or your rich neighbours. If you do, they may invite you back. But when you give a banquet, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind, and you will be blessed. Henri Nouwen, the great Dutch priest, who lived the last 10 years of his life in community with those with profound learning disabilities, said that the highest form of hospitality is a particular kind of listening. Listening not to change people, he said, but offering them space where change can take place. Above all, therefore, hospitality is outworked in a posture of radical presence, an attitude of attentiveness and availability. And if, once in a while, this kind of hospitality comes with a box of chocolates, enjoy. You'll certainly have earned it. I want to caveat that by saying that there's nothing wrong with dinner parties. If you love hosting people, go for it. And please invite me, because I like going to them. But don't do that at the expense of biblical hospitality. And if you hate dinner parties, then that's fine as well. But don't let that prevent you from practicing biblical hospitality. So the words in the Greek, as Pete Gregg told us, actually mean friendship to strangers. And when we think about Jesus' ministry, I think that's what we see him doing, isn't it? That's what we see him demonstrate. Care for those who are hurting and welcome for those who are unwelcome elsewhere. Biblical hospitality starts in our hearts, not in our homes, although sometimes it will lead to our homes. So this morning I want us to think about, what does it look like in our day-to-day lives to have hospitable hearts? I want to read a few verses, and the first one is in Romans as well. It's earlier on in Romans chapter 5. By entering through faith into what God has always wanted to do for us, set us right with him, make us fit for him. We have it all together with God because of our Master Jesus. And that's not all. We throw open our doors to God and discover at the same moment that he has already thrown open his door to us. We find ourselves standing where we always hoped we might stand, out in the wide open spaces of God's grace and glory, standing tall and shouting our praise. God has opened his door to us. He has flung wide his door to us. And now that we are there in that wide open space, he asks us to open our door to others. And in doing so, we'll be opening our doors to him. Revelation 3 verse 20, Jesus says this, and this is like the real crux of what we're thinking about this morning. Look, I stand at the door and knock. If you hear my voice and open the door, I will come in and we will share a meal together as friends. This verse is really often used about salvation, about people responding to Jesus for the first time. But actually, where it's written in Revelation, Jesus is saying it to the church, and he's saying it as a warning against indifference. That he stands at the door and knocks and speaks. And if we hear his voice and open the door, he will come in. And I think really often in life, Jesus' voice and his knock come through other people, and they are for other people. It's as if Jesus is bringing them to our door and saying, this is so-and-so. I want them to know you. Will you open the door and let them in? I think that is what biblical hospitality is. This is the image that has just come to me so strongly this week when I think about hospitality. It's an open door, maybe of our homes, but definitely of our hearts. So what does that mean? What does it mean to have an open door? What's behind the door? There's a lady called Rosaria Butterfield who has written a lot on hospitality, and her book was recommended to me ages ago, and I forgot about it, so I can't recommend it to you because I haven't read it, but I can just tell you that it was recommended to me, so it's probably good. But if it's not, I didn't say it was. And she says this: hospitality shares what is there, or what there is. That's all. It's not entertainment. It's not supposed to be. Hospitality shares what is there. So what is there? And that really ties in the two parts of the verse. Share with the Lord's people who are in need. Practice hospitality. Really, they are saying a very similar thing. So what is there that we can share? What is behind the door? Let's read Ephesians chapter 3. Some really well-known verses. When I think of all this, I fall to my knees and pray to the Father, the creator of everything in heaven and on earth. I pray that from his glorious, unlimited resources, he will empower you with inner strength through his Spirit. Then Christ will make his home in your hearts as you trust in him. Your roots will grow down deep into God's love and keep you strong. What's behind the door? Jesus is behind the door. He's knocking at the door, and he's also behind the door because his home is in your heart. He has made his home in your heart. And so when you welcome others in, you're welcoming them into him. It's like he's saying, knocking on the door and saying, this is so-and-so. I want them to know you. Will you open the door to them and show them what life with me is like? Show them how I have made your heart my home and how I long to do the same with them. So what does this home in our hearts look like? Well, I think it has a hall, because in a hall people unburden themselves, don't they? They take off that which weighs them down, and they also take off the protective layer, and they make themselves vulnerable, and they become lighter. They unburden themselves. So I think this home in our hearts has a hall where people can do that, where they can come in and unburden themselves. I think it has a kitchen. In a kitchen, we create, don't we? We create meals and we provide, and often in partnership. And I think that's what God is doing in our hearts too, creating and providing and inviting you to partner with him in that. And so when you open the door of your heart to others, you are also inviting others to join in that partnership and to share in the provision. I think it has a dining room where people are fed, where people are nourished and sustained, and where people are served. Who is around you in your life that you could serve? Who needs some nourishment and some sustenance? In a living room, people are listened to. Who in your life has a story that needs telling, but they have no one to hear it? No one to listen? Who could you invite into the living room in your heart? This is really cheesy, right? I know it's really cheesy, but I just feel like there is something that we can get from that. In a bedroom, they rest. Who could you invite into God's presence that is in you so that they can experience his rest? In a bathroom, people are cleansed, and our God is the God who washes whiter than snow. And in a playroom, they have fun. I have a friend who I only see a few times a year, but when I see her, we just laugh so much. We laugh so much. And afterwards, I'm so uplifted because fun is really important. Who needs that in your life? Who around you needs to have some fun? In an attic, people get things out that have been put away. And I wonder what treasure there is in the people around us that God has put there, that for some reason or other they have put away. I wonder what could happen if we opened the door of our hearts and invited people in to where God is and help them have the courage to uncover the treasure that they have put away. Amazing things could happen. And in a garden, people plant. What does God want to plant in the hearts and the lives of the people in your life? Maybe a conversation with you, maybe time with you, maybe just being invited in is the thing that will make the little hole in the earth for God to put the seed into. The next time that we're talking to somebody, I wonder what impact it would have if we asked Jesus at the start of the conversation, Jesus, what room does this person need to meet you in? In my heart, where you have made your home. That's what's behind the door. But who do we open the door for? You can probably guess. Everyone. And that includes our friends. Of course it does. But it's not limited to our friends. We've already read this passage in the Pete Gregg quote from Luke 14. Then he turned to the host. The next time you put on a dinner, don't just invite your friends and family and rich neighbours. the kind of people who will return the favour. Invite some people who never get invited out, the misfits from the wrong side of the tracks. You'll be and experience a blessing. They won't be able to return the favour, but the favour will be returned. Oh, how it will be returned at the resurrection of God's people. Jesus stands at the door and knocks and asks us to open the door and make room in our hearts and our lives for those who no one else will make room for those who don't seem to have anything to offer in return, for people that you don't really click with, people with a different worldview, people who will challenge your worldview, people with different experiences or different priorities. Jesus invited us in even though we had nothing to offer him. And he asks us to do the same thing. And actually, how can we expect people to believe that God has space for them in his heart if we don't make room for them in ours? And I was thinking about it, and I wonder if sometimes if that's why people think following Jesus is just a set of rules. They don't see the grace and the love and the friendship and the abundant life that he brings, because those things happen in the heart. Those things happen in our hearts, don't they? And so if we're keeping people at arm's length, they can't see what a life with Jesus is like. I think it's maybe the difference between inviting people to share an incredible meal or just telling them about an incredible meal that you've had. When we invite people to share the meal, we're giving them the opportunity to taste and see that God is good. So that's what's behind the door, and that's who we should open the door to. So when should we open the door? I want to tell you about my house growing up. It came with my dad's job, and my dad worked in a forest, and so it was on the edge of the forest. And then the other sides of it were surrounded by fields and a dual carriageway. So it wasn't very accessible. People didn't just really drop by. Visits and play dates for us as children were pre-arranged with a nice, neat start time and finish time. And now I live in a village. And Rick will tell you that it's taken me a bit of adjustment. It's still taking me adjustment to get used to that, because people appear when I'm not expecting them. And especially the kids. And I said to Rick a few months ago, I really want our house to be the house where all the kids who need Jesus come and hang out. And I think Jesus heard that, because there are always children in our house. It has taken me a bit of adjustment. I don't know when they're leaving. I don't know if they've had dinner. Should I give them dinner? Have their mums made them dinner? Have they done their homework? Should I be getting them to do their homework? Oh, I was just about to put Benji to bed, and now you've come, and now he won't want to go to bed. One of them, poor child, even saw me in my pajamas last week because I didn't know he was there. I came downstairs, and then that's the thing, right? It's winter now. It gets dark early. The one plus side is you can put your pajamas on earlier. But no, because there might be some unknown children in your house. Sometimes they bring other kids with them. Sometimes we get home from church and they're sitting on the wall waiting for us to come home. It's inconvenient. It's unexpected. It's messy, and it's very stretching. But it's also wonderful. And deep down I am really glad, because they want to be in a house where Jesus is. That's not what they don't know that's where they're coming. Maybe that's only part of the reason they're coming. But they want to be in our house. And Jesus is in our house. And so who knows what could happen. I want to say that we sound like we haven't nailed when I say things like that. We really don't. Like, I'm all the time going, oh my goodness, they're here again. But deep down, well, I'm glad. Hospitality allows for interruption, and it welcomes inconvenience. Monday is my day off work, and so Monday is my writing day in the week that's coming up to a talk. But this Monday looked a little bit different because Rich had, probably the worst man flu the world's ever seen. Would you say? It was pretty touch and go, guys. Like, honestly, you've got no idea how bad it was. It took an awful lot of sympathy. Took an awful lot of time out of my day. It was worth it, yeah. I had the meter man, he came round, and he said, oh, the last time I was here, your house looked really different. So he stopped for a little chat about what we'd done to the house. And then a friend appeared at the door just after he had left with a box of eggs for me. And my Monday was fast disappearing, and I think it was 12:30 before I sat down to write, and I have to leave at 2 to get Benji. And it made me think when my friend arrived with the eggs, do we sometimes miss gifts that are being offered because we're so fixated on our schedules? And we're so focused on the interruption and the inconvenience. I think a big part of biblical hospitality is living in a village, not in a house behind a dual carriageway where people have to arrange to come and see you. It's challenging. It's messy. There are interruptions to your life. But Jesus comes to the door. And it's not to say that boundaries aren't important. Of course, boundaries are important. But I think it's really important to remember as well that Jesus really cares deeply about your well-being. So when he knocks on your door, you can trust him that he knows what he's doing. And you can open the door. So where do we open this door? Well, anywhere, not just in your home. We don't read of Jesus having a home when he was ministering in the Bible. But yet he always had time and space for everybody. Wherever he went, he noticed people. He took time with them. He listened to them and he met their needs. And we can do those things too. We can't meet their needs, but we carry the one who can. He was open to interruption. Think about the woman who touched his cloak as he was walking along, to the crowds who followed him everywhere, the men who lowered their friend through the roof so that they could get to him, the children who came to him and the disciples tried to usher away. Jesus was willing to pause his agenda and be diverted from his journey. So often when he was interrupted, he was going somewhere, wasn't he? He was traveling, and people came and interrupted him and stopped him. And he stopped, not just with his body, but with his mind and with his heart. He was willing to be diverted from his journey. And I think that phrase, the door is always open, was true of Jesus. And I wonder this morning if it's always true of us. Now, I want to get practical, right? Because not all of our journeys can be diverted indefinitely, right? You have to go to work and you have to be on time. Or you have to get your kids from school. We have responsibilities that we can't ignore. But I think it's just important to remember that it doesn't mean we have to close the door at those times. So at the school gate in the morning, I can't stay for half an hour and have a chat with somebody and let them pour out their heart to me. But I can say, look, I've got to go to work, but here's my number. Text me and let's meet up again when we've got time and chat and go for a walk or something. Or we can use the windows that we have. Occasionally, Nicola and I are on the school pickup on the same day. And when that happens, we say, let's go to the park, because it means the kids run around and we're meeting our responsibilities and looking after them, but we are also opening the door to each other in the park. And we have some amazing conversations in the park. We also just have conversations where we just put the world to rights. But it's a way that we can use the windows that we have to open the door to each other. And Jesus' interactions were not often very long ones. I think we sometimes have this idea that when we let people in, we're like trying to become best friends with them, or we're letting them in for life, or we're going to be stuck there forever. But Jesus' interactions were not always very long ones. They weren't often very long ones. They might only have been for a few minutes, but they were always life-giving. When he was on his journeys, when he was traveling and people interrupted him, he maybe just spent a few minutes with them, but he always met the needs that they came with. We can open our hearts to Jesus and the people that he brings to the door. We can open our hearts in a queue, on the bus, in the staff room, in the doctor's waiting room, in Tesco, at work, even just walking down our road, we can open the door to Jesus and the people that he brings. So how do we wait for his knock? We've looked at what's behind the door. Who do we open it to? When do we open it? Where do we open it? So how do we do it? Well, I think we wait not passively but actively, because the word in the Greek, where in the English it's written practice, the word in the Greek actually means pursue. Pursue hospitality. Pursue kindness to strangers. Look for opportunities. Jesus is the one who left the 99 for the one. To look for the one. To bring the one in. And I wonder, will we do that? Will we be people who go out and look for the one? Are we going around with our fingers in our ears? I'm too busy today, Jesus. Don't knock on the door today. Or are we straining to hear even the gentlest knock, to hear his whisper calling our name? This morning, maybe you can already think of people who you think Jesus might be heading to your door with. Are you listening carefully for his knock? Let's be people who go out of our way to go out of our way. Why do we do it? Why do we open the door to him? Well, we've sung it this morning because he did it for us. Each of us was the one that he left the 99 for. And he rescued us while we had nothing to offer. In Like Kids, at the moment, we're doing a little series. We looked at creation, as you remember, and now we're doing a little series on what went wrong after creation. And then we're going to look at some Christmas prophecies about the rescuer coming to get us. And then we're going to look at Christmas when the rescuer came. And the memory verse this month is from Romans, and I forgot to write it down, so this is going to test my memorizing of the memory verse. Christ died for us while we were still sinners. In this way, God shows his great love for us. Romans 5 verse 8. That's what we're learning in Like Kids, that while we were still sinners, while we had nothing to offer, while we were just hopeless, Christ died for us. He opened the door to us. And so we do that for him. When we do that for the people that he brings to us, we're doing it for him. Jesus said in Matthew 25, "Then the king will say to those on his right, 'Come, you who are blessed by my Father. Inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the creation of the world. For I was hungry and you fed me. I was thirsty and you gave me a drink. I was a stranger and you invited me into your home. I was naked and you gave me clothing. I was sick and you cared for me. I was in prison and you visited me.' Then these righteous ones will reply, 'Lord, when did we ever see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink, or a stranger and show you hospitality, or naked and give you clothing? When did we ever see you sick or in prison and visit you?' And the king will say, 'I tell you the truth, when you did it to one of the least of these, my brothers and sisters, you were doing it to me.'" Opening the door to the people that he brings is part of our worship to the King. We do it for him. And finally, what happens if we don't do it? Let's read in Luke 9. "When it came close to the time for his ascension, he gathered up his courage and steeled himself for the journey to Jerusalem. He sent messengers on ahead. They came to a Samaritan village to make arrangements for his hospitality. But when the Samaritans learned that his destination was Jerusalem, they refused hospitality. When the disciples James and John learned of it, they said, 'Master, do you want us to call a bolt of lightning down out of the sky and incinerate them?' Jesus turned on them, 'Of course not.' And they travelled on to another village." Quite an extreme reaction from James and John there. When they were refused hospitality, when Jesus was refused hospitality, when he was refused kindness, when he was refused an open door, there was no punishment. They just travelled to another village. those words at the end, and they travelled on to another village. They just really hit me, because I don't want Jesus to knock on my door and get no answer, and so move on to another village. Move on and try another door. Maybe he will get an answer at that other door, but whoever is with him, whoever he is bringing to my door, will have to wait a little bit longer before they get the welcome. And I will have missed my part in it. When Jesus brings people to your door, he's bringing them to your door for a reason. You have a part to play in that. And any invitation from Jesus is worth responding to. Remember what he said, that you'll be a blessing and you'll experience a blessing. I want to throw open my door to Jesus and to the people he brings, as he has thrown open his door to me. I want to invite people to try the meal, to try a wonderful, abundant life. I want to invite them in to what Jesus is doing in my heart, not just tell them about it, so that they can experience it too. And I want my door to always be open. Having said all of that, I'm really aware that there might be people here this morning who have opened their door in the past and been hurt. Maybe because your hospitality was refused. You opened the door to somebody and you feel like they just slammed it back in your face. Or maybe because you felt like your welcome was taken advantage of. Those things are really painful. And sometimes our response to that is to shut the door and lock it, to prevent it being opened again and the same thing happening again. But the thing is, a door is only a door if it opens. Otherwise, it's a wall. And God did not create our hearts to have walls around them. He created them to have doors that can be opened. But the good news this morning is that he is the most skilled and gentle locksmith that there is, one that there could ever be. And he knows how to unlock your heart and open it up again. He won't force his way in. He'll just stand at the door and knock. And others of us maybe haven't been hurt because we've never tried it. Because fear of what might happen next has prevented us from opening the door. But his promise in Revelation is that if we open the door, he will come in and share a meal with us as friends. That's what will happen next. If you hear my voice and open the door, I will come in and we will eat together as friends. Friendship with Jesus, that's what's next. That's what happens when we open the door. And it's the most wonderful thing that there is. It's friendship with the one who was and is to come. It's friendship with the one who has plans to give us a hope and a future. When we open the door, we see those plans come to fruition. It's friendship with the one who said, "It is finished." And it's friendship with the one who is the beginning and the end. That's what happens when we open the door. That's what comes. There's nothing to be afraid of. Our tagline here is making room for another. And that was the other phrase that just kept coming to me when I was preparing this week. An open door and making room. And I thought about that, and then I thought, oh, that's our tagline, making room for another. We want to be a people who love. We want to be a people who open the door and make room for another. That was my experience when I walked through the doors of this church for the first time, that I immediately felt a space made for me, where I could flourish, where I could grow, where I could step into everything that God has for me. It's been an incredible 5 years. That's what's available for you. The first time that you walked through these doors, a space was made for you. Willingly, joyfully, eagerly. And that is what we will do for every single person that walks through the doors. And we're not going to sit here and wait for people. We're going to go out and pursue them. We're going to go and pursue friendship to strangers. Because when we do that, the strangers become friends. And that's wonderful. And that's what God's done for us, isn't it? He pursued us and he turned us from strangers into friends. We're going to sing a song called Reckless Love, which is all about how Jesus pursues us. And as we sing it, let the truth of the words sink down deep into your heart. This is what he does for you. He did it, and he does it, and he will always do it. And he asked you to do that to others and for others so that they can see that that's what he is like. He is pursuing them, and he invites you to do that with him.
Took a breath, you breathed your life in me. You have been so, so kind to me. It's all the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Deserve it, still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. No shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. Down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down. reckless love of God.
I think part of opening the door to Jesus this morning is for him to come in and bring his healing to the places where it has happened before and it has brought pain. He doesn't want it to be a wall, he wants it to be a door, because that's how it was created. But he also doesn't want you to live with pain. He wants to come in and bring his healing this morning. Sometimes it's really good to have a physical response in a time like this, because it helps us to recognize the moment and the spiritual response that's happening. And so, as we're talking about open doors, if you want to open your door to Jesus this morning, maybe for the first time in a long time, maybe just it's already open but you want to open it a bit more, I just want to invite you to open your hands as a way of showing him your open heart. Thank you, Jesus, that you come to our door. How incredible that the creator of the world, the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, comes to our door and knocks and calls our name. Thank you that you know our names, Jesus, and you call them. Jesus, thank you that when we open our hearts to you, you never hesitate to come in. You can't wait. You can't wait to come in. Jesus, we invite you this morning into our hearts again. And I pray for every person with their hands open, God, that you would come in with your healing, with your love, with your life.
I just wanted to pick up on one beautiful phrase that Ruth used, and she said that Jesus is a skilled and gentle locksmith. And just in that moment, I just had a picture of Jesus just gently turning keys, and people around the room were just being released from the things in their hearts that are difficult, that perhaps prevent them from pursuing either relationship with others or relationship with Jesus. So if that's you this morning, we would really love to pray a wee bit more for you.